Hey dads and moms, I'm Brian and welcome to the Dad Life. For those of you who need a way to keep your breast milk cool throughout the day and need something convenient that actually works, well, I'm right there with you and I need something too. Some of you might be thinking about navigating away from this video because you think this doesn't apply to me. And that's totally cool, but just wait for 30 seconds while I share some scenarios that I've been thinking about and maybe one of those might be relevant to you. And if you stick around to the very end, I'm going to share some details about how you can get a free cooler because I'm giving 5 of them away in partnership with one of our sponsors. So the first one, imagine if your partner has to go back to work and she needs to pump while she's at work for about 8 to 12 hours and needs a place to store that liquid gold until she gets home. Then imagine that she has a doctor's appointment or a workout class or other errands that she needs to do after work before she comes home, and she may be out of the house for 12 to 18 hours in total before she can refrigerate or even freeze the milk that she pumped throughout the day. Now, thirdly, imagine you're going on a long road trip or an international flight with the baby. You're probably not going to have a fridge readily accessible for you, and a portable cooler can keep you covered until you get to your destination. And lastly, let's say you want to take milk that you've previously frozen on one of those long trips and need a place to keep it cold until you need it. This could be an effective way to do this. So I'm going to be testing these 2 popular milk coolers head to head because I want to make sure that our liquid gold stays fresh until we need it. I'm also primarily reviewing the cooling abilities of these coolers and not anything else, since that's pretty much the most important feature. And that's why you'd buy one of these instead of a regular cooler, right? A quick note, this ended up being a longer video, so if you're interested in the testing that I did, stick around for the entire thing and you'll find it pretty interesting. Now, if you just want to get to the punchline, feel free to jump forward to the results section. All right. Momcozy, a sponsor of this channel, sent me this portable milk cooler, and it's like a thermos with 2 gel-infused inserts that you can freeze overnight for about 12 hours for maximum cooling power. And once it's frozen, you can place them into this thermos along with 2 milk bottles that stack between the frozen rings. And this will keep the milk cold for up to 24 hours, or so they claim. Each milk bottle can hold up to 11 ounces of milk or 22 ounces in total. Now, I'm also comparing this to the Ceres chill cooler, which works a little bit differently. Instead of bottles, you pour the milk directly into a stainless steel thermos, and an ice-filled inner insert cools the milk around it. The main difference is that the Ceres chill allows the milk to touch the outer stainless steel bottle, and as the ice melts on the insert, the milk will eventually warm up. With the Momcozy, the milk stays inside BPA-free bottles, never in contact with the outside thermos. That being said, you could flip the milk and the ice, where you put the milk inside of the inner tube and you put the ice in the main thermos area, and it should stay cold, but you'll be able to store less milk. Ceres says that their product can keep milk cold for 16 to 20 hours if you put the milk in the larger compartment and fill the inner tube with ice. And their manual claims that freshly expressed milk lasts up to 24 hours at a temperature below 59 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. So basically, I want to see if both of these coolers can live up to what they claim. If you've been following the channel, some of you might know that I'm a product designer with a background in mechanical engineering and design from Carnegie Mellon University here in the United States. And I have about 20 years of experience designing products ranging from safety products used by first responders to consumer electronics to digital experiences and more. Earlier in my career, I designed portable gas detectors that first responders use in hazardous environments to make sure that they're safe wherever they go. Now, these detectors need to survive intense environments that range from super cold places like minus 20 degrees Celsius to very hot, like 100 degrees Celsius. And we used to do various temperature testing to see how our product would perform. I'm going to use some very similar equipment and data analysis techniques that we use for those products on these 2 here. First, my wife agreed to let me use 8 ounces of her frozen breast milk for this test so that I can simulate this as best as possible. So thanks a lot, honey. To measure the temperature of the milk over time, I'm going to use K-style thermocouples that are highly accurate up to about plus or minus 0.1 degrees Celsius. These thermocouples get plugged into a data logger, which will automatically record the temperature reading from those thermocouples every minute. And the data is then saved on an SD card that is plugged into the data logger, and I'll transfer this to my laptop to plot the data after the test is done. I also have some aluminum, or aluminium as our European friends might say, HVAC tape that is used to help seal some things up to avoid breaking the thin thermocouples, and you'll see how I use that in a little bit. For this test, I'm going to put the same breast milk into each product with thermocouples in the milk to measure the temperature of the milk. I'm going to warm up the milk inside of milk storage bags in hot water until it's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and then let it cool down until it reaches 98 degrees Fahrenheit, which is approximately the temperature that milk is going to be when it's freshly expressed from the body. Then I'm going to put that milk into the product to start the test. The room that I'm testing this in is at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, room temperature, and it is controlled by our thermostat in the house, and this is going to be good enough for this test. I'm going to follow the instructions to the T for each product on what they recommend for maximum cooling strength. And I'm going to leave the bottles untouched for 24 hours and see if or when they exceed the 40 degree Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius threshold, which is what the US Center for Disease Control, the CDC, defines as being thawed milk and no longer refrigerated. One thing to note is that since both products have threaded caps, I'm not able to screw them on as designed because it would squish and break the thermocouples because they're basically just thin wires. So I'm going to use that aluminum HVAC tape, which is a metal foil tape used to insulate and seal up HVAC equipment, and I'm going to use this to seal the lids onto the canisters. This won't be a perfect seal, and there's going to be some temperature loss from there. However, it is a good approximation regardless, and you can add this as a footnote in the results. Now for the big reveal. I left both products in a 72 degree Fahrenheit room for 24 hours and ran all of these tests, and here's what happened. Let's start with the Ceres cooler first. For the Ceres cooler, I tested this using both chilling methods recommended by Ceres, and for the first test, I put the milk in the inner tube and added ice into the larger compartment. It cooled the milk down initially to a low temperature of 55 degrees after 3 hours, and then started to increase back up to room temperature. And as you can see from the graph, the temperature never dropped down below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I ran another test where I put the milk in the larger compartment and filled the inner tube with ice like their manual says. This cooled the milk down to 42 degrees after 14 hours, and it stayed below the 59 degree Fahrenheit recommendation from Ceres. It did not get below the recommended refrigerated temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit by the CDC though. Now for the Momcozy cooler, the top bottle held out for about 18 hours before warming up and crossing the 40 degree Fahrenheit threshold, which again, according to the CDC, is the point where the milk is considered thawed. The bottom bottle inside of the cooler was a beast. It stayed at around 32 to 33 degrees Fahrenheit for the entire 24-hour test. In terms of what they claim, that this can keep milk cold for 24 hours, under the conditions of this test, I would say that the bottom bottle definitely meets this, but the upper bottle will only last you about 18 hours before it needs to be refrigerated. So basically, I would say that this claim is almost true. So just a couple of things to keep in mind about this test. The first one is that the ambient temperature of the space that I was testing in was at 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 degrees Celsius. But if you're out of the house and you're in a car, for example, temperatures might fluctuate. And depending on where you are and the outside temperature, depending on your seasons, it could be higher or lower. And so your results may vary. So I would only use these tests as a baseline reference point for what I've run, and then use your best judgment depending on your situation when you're on the go. I also do want to share some experiment considerations. Now, if I were to run this test 5 more times, would I get different results? Maybe a little bit, but I think it would follow the same trends and the conclusions wouldn't change significantly. Also, I'm doing this test in a relatively controlled real-world environment and not in a lab, so repeating this test exactly may not yield the same results every time, and I would encourage you to try it yourself if you want to. Now, I do want to dig a little bit deeper into this claim from Ceres about this 59 degree temperature. I mentioned before that Ceres' breast milk storage guidelines in their manual has a statement saying that freshly expressed milk lasts up to 24 hours at temperatures below 59 degrees Fahrenheit. When I first saw this, I didn't remember seeing this on the CDC chart that I also have, and after double checking, sure enough, it's not there. I was really curious about this because this is the first time I've ever heard about this 59 degree Fahrenheit value. And after a lot of research, I was only able to find one FAQ on the CDC site that says expressed breast milk may be stored and transported in an insulated cooler with frozen ice packs for up to 24 hours. And there's no information about how cold the frozen ice packs need to be. However, one would assume frozen means close to 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. I was still curious about this, so I reached out to Ceres' customer service to ask them directly where they found this guideline, and when they responded, they pointed to a 2017 study from the Academy of Breastfeeding Medicine where it says that very few studies have evaluated milk storage safety at 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be the equivalent to an ice pack in a small cooler. The only study they reference in that one is from a 1996 study by Georgetown University Medical Center where they tested 16 samples under varying conditions, and they found that bacterial growth was restricted mainly to non-pathogens, was minimal at 15 degrees Celsius throughout the 24 hours of storage. So that's a lot. Basically, Ceres is making its recommendation that breast milk is safe at 59 degrees Fahrenheit or less for 24 hours based on one study from 1996 that used a maximum of 16 samples of breast milk. Also, it's important to note that the CDC has not made this specific recommendation on their storage guidelines, but their other guidelines are aligned with the other studies mentioned in the ABM study. So it really seems like the CDC does not fully support this recommendation quite yet, but is willing to acknowledge that chilled breast milk using frozen ice packs is acceptable. If you choose to use this product, you'll likely want some confidence that the ice packs are keeping your cooler bag below 59 degrees Fahrenheit the entire time, which is the only claim that this study makes. So, this doesn't quite meet my standard for a scientifically based research recommendation, but I'll let you make your own conclusions. I've linked all of the resources in the description below, and you can take a look. So even with a really lightly proven claim about keeping milk fresh under 59 degrees Fahrenheit by Ceres, the results that I ran show that the temperature did drop below 59 degrees Fahrenheit after 4 hours in the cooler and then stayed below 59 degrees Fahrenheit for the rest of the test. So it does technically meet their claim. Now the question is whether you want to follow the CDC recommendations or this lightly proven recommendation. Personally, we're going to stick with the CDC guidelines that all pediatricians in the US follow for keeping breast milk under 40 degrees Fahrenheit for as long as possible. And then for my testing, I only have confidence that one of these two products can help keep our milk fresh for at least 18 hours or 24 hours if I place the milk in the lower half of this cooler. So there you have it. The Momcozy cooler holds up pretty well for those long days out and about. You can find links to the CDC breast milk storage guidelines and a promo code below if you want to get a discount on the Momcozy cooler. Now, if you made it this far, then I want to reward you with an opportunity to win a free Momcozy cooler as a giveaway. The details for this are in the description below, and all you have to do is subscribe to the channel and live in the continental United States to be eligible for this giveaway. And there are 5 coolers that I'll be giving away. If Momcozy, Ceres, or the CDC have any comments or recommendations on how to do this test differently for more optimal results, please drop it in the comments or email me. And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and subscribe for more practical parenting tips and baby gear reviews. I'll see you next time on The Dad Life.